Listen here, children. Come close now. Let me tell you about a soul that wouldn't bend. Back in them dark days when chains sang louder than freedom songs, when the auction block ran red with tears, and the whipping post knew more prayers than any church house ever heard, there lived a woman named Dinah. Lord have mercy. Her story ain't written in no white man's book, no sir. Lives in the wind that still whispers through them old cotton fields, in the blood the Louisiana clay drank and never forgot. This here's a testimony from the quarters, a memory we keep alive so the suffering don't get lost in the silence. They tried to sell her body, but her soul? Sweet Jesus, her soul belonged to the ancestors and the North Star. Now settle yourself down and listen with your whole heart, 'cause what I'm about to tell you happened in the cruel light of day, and the echoes still shake the earth. The rooster ain't even crowed good when Dinah's eyes opened to the gray light slipping through the cracks in the cabin wall. Lord of glory, another day. Her body ached something terrible from yesterday's work in them cotton fields, her fingers still stiff and bloody from the bowl's sharp edges. She lay there on that hard ground, just a thin blanket between her and the dirt floor, listening to the breathing of her babies sleeping beside her. Jem, 7 years old and already showing the strong back of a field hand. Lila, just 5, with eyes that still held some light the plantation ain't stolen yet. Dinah pushed herself up slow, every muscle protesting. 38 years she'd been breathing air on this earth, 28 of them under Massa Elias Hawthorne's iron fist. Her skin, dark as a moonless night, bore the maps of her suffering, scars from the whip crossing her back like roads to nowhere, burn marks on her shoulder from that branding iron when she was just a girl. But her eyes, sweet Jesus. Her eyes still burned with something the overseer couldn't touch with all his cruelty. She moved quiet-like through the quarters, past other families stirring in their cabins. The smell of wood smoke mixed with sweat and exhaustion hung heavy in the damp Louisiana air. Outside, the sky was turning from black to that deep purple that comes before dawn, and already she could hear the plantation waking up, the clank of chains, the low moaning of folks preparing for another day's burden. "Mama?" Lila's small voice called from the darkness. "Hush now, baby girl," Dinah whispered, bending down to stroke her daughter's cornrowed hair. "Sun ain't up yet. Get you some more rest." But there wasn't no rest for the weary, not on Hawthorne Plantation. The bell would ring soon, that damned bell that called them to the fields like cattle to slaughter. Dinah stepped outside into the pre-dawn chill, wrapping her arms around herself. All around the quarters, other souls was emerging from their cabins, men with backs bent from years of cotton picking, women with bellies swollen from babies they'd birth and maybe get to raise, maybe get sold away from. Old Silas was already at the well, pulling up water with movements so practiced they looked like prayer. "Mornin', Sister Dinah," he called out, his voice rough as tree bark. "Mornin', Brother Silas." She took the dipper from him, drank deep. The water was cold, clean, one of the few mercies this cruel place offered. That's when she heard it, the sound that made her blood run cold. Horses, multiple horses coming up the long drive to the big house. White men's horses, moving with purpose. Dina's heart commenced to beating hard in her chest, that old familiar dread rising up like floodwater. "Lord have mercy," Silas muttered, his eyes following the sound. "Them's buyer horses. I know that sound too well." Dinah felt her knees go weak. Buyer horses. That meant men from New Orleans from the auction houses come to look at Massa Hawthorne stock. The old ones warned about this, whispered it in the dark. The Massa had been losing at cards, drinking more, yelling at the overseer about money troubles. And when white men got money troubles, it was black folks paid the price in flesh. The bell rang then, splitting the morning quiet like an axe through wood. Time to move. Dinah went back inside, roused her children with gentle hands but a heavy heart. Jem looked up at her with them wise eyes, too wise for a child. "Mama, you look scared." She forced a smile she didn't feel. "Ain't nothing, baby boy, just another day. Come on now, let's get you ready." They walked to the fields as the sun broke over the horizon, turning the sky blood red. Hundreds of souls moving in one direction. a river of bondage flowing toward the cotton that grew white as ghosts across the endless acres. The overseer, Mr. Thaddeus Crouch, sat on his horse at the field's edge. That whip coiled in his hand like a snake ready to strike. His face was hard as stone, his eyes cold enough to freeze hell itself. Move along, he barked. Massa wants a good pickin' today, here? Any soul draggin' behind gonna meet my persuader?" He cracked that whip in the air for emphasis, and Dinah felt Lila flinch beside her. She bent down, whispered in her daughter's ear, "You stay close to Aunt Ruth today, here? Mama's gonna be in the far field." The work commenced like it always did, endless, back-breaking, soul-crushing. Dinah moved down the rows, her fingers dancing over the cotton bolls with the efficiency of years. Pick, drop in the sack. Pick, drop in the sack. The sun climbed higher, beaten down like the overseer's whip, and sweat poured down her face, mixing with the dust till she tasted Louisiana clay in her mouth. But even as her body worked, her mind was somewhere else. She was singing under her breath, one of them old spirituals the elders taught her. "Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water." It wasn't just a song. It was code. It was hope. It was memory of Africa and promise of freedom, all wrapped up in words the white folks thought was just simple slave religion. But Dinah knew better. Her mama, before she got sold away, taught her to read the hidden meanings. Wade in the water meant throw the dogs off your scent when you runnin'. Drinking gourd meant follow the North Star. Every spiritual was a map, a message, a lifeline. "Dinah!" The voice cut through her thoughts like a knife. She looked up to see the driver, a brother named Marcus, who'd sold his soul to be Massa's eyes in the field. He rode up on a mule, his face twisted with the power the white man gave him. "Overseer wants you up at the big house now." Her heart dropped into her stomach. The big house. That wasn't never good news. She set down her sack, wiped her hands on her ragged dress, and started walking. Behind her, she heard the whispers spreading through the field like wildfire. "Dinah's been called up. Lord have mercy. Them buyers must want to see her." The walk from the field to the big house felt like walking to her own funeral. The mansion rose up ahead, white columns gleaming in the sun like teeth in a skull's grin. She'd been inside before, serving at Massa's dinner parties, seeing how the white folks lived while her people slept on dirt floors and ate scraps. The contrast burned in her gut like hot coals. Mr. Crouch met her at the servants' entrance. "Clean yourself up," he growled. "Massa's got important guests. You gonna serve 'em tea on the veranda?" She washed her face and hands in the basin, put on the serving dress they kept for such occasions, still ragged, but cleaner than her field clothes. Her hands was shaken as she picked up the silver tea service. Through the window she could see them, 3 white men in fine suits, sitting on the veranda with Massa Hawthorne, smoking cigars and laughing like the devil himself. Dinah pushed through the door, kept her eyes down like a good slave was supposed to, but her ears was wide open. "Fine stock you got here, Hawthorne," one of the men was saying, his voice thick with tobacco and greed. "We're particularly interested in young, strong females. Breeding age. The market in New Orleans is paying top dollar." Her hands nearly dropped the teapot. Breeding age. They was talking about women like they was horses. "I got several that fit the bill," Massa Hawthorne replied, and Dinah felt his eyes on her even though she wasn't looking up. "This one here, for instance. Dina, strong as an ox, good teeth, birthed 2 healthy children. Knows her place." The buyer leaned forward and Dinah could feel his gaze crawling over her skin like maggots. "How old?" 28, prime years ahead of her. "Let me see her hands." Dinah's whole body went rigid. This was an examination. She was being looked at like merchandise. Slowly, she set down the tea service and held out her hands, keeping her eyes fixed on the porch floorboards. The buyer grabbed her wrist, turned her hand over, felt her calluses. "Good field hands. What about her temperament?" "Obedient. Never given me trouble." That was a lie, and Massa Hawthorne knew it. Dinah had given him trouble plenty, slowing her work just enough to not get whipped, accidentally breaking tools, teaching other slaves their letters in secret. But she'd been smart about it, careful. Or so she thought. The men talked over her head like she was a piece of furniture, discussing her worth in dollars and cents while her soul screamed inside her chest. Finally, Mr. Crouch dismissed her with a wave, and she walked back to the kitchen on legs that felt like water. Aunt Ruth, the old cook, was waiting there. She was ancient, her hair white as cotton, her face a map of wrinkles and wisdom. She'd seen too many sales, too many families torn apart. "I heard," Aunt Ruth whispered, pulling Dinah into the pantry. "Child, they making a list. Overseer's been talking. Massa's in deep with his debts. He gonna sell off a third of the plantation folk to pay his gambling bills." Dinah's vision went blurry with tears. "My babies." "I know, child. I know." Aunt Ruth gripped her hands tight. "But you listen to me now. You stronger than you know. Your mama was strong. Your grandmama before her. You got African blood running in them veins, blood of kings and queens. They can chain your body, but your soul flies free if you let it. What can I do?" The old woman's eyes glinted with something fierce. "You wait. You watch. And when the time comes, you fight. However you gotta fight." Dinah returned to the fields in a daze, her mind spinning. The afternoon dragged on like molasses, the sun beaten down merciless, but she barely felt it. She was thinking about her children, about the auction block in New Orleans that she'd heard tell of, a wooden platform where human souls was sold to the highest bidder, families ripped apart without a second thought. "Not my babies," she thought fiercely. "Lord Jesus, not my babies." That evening, as the sun set blood red over the plantation, casting long shadows across the quarters, something happened that made the whole world stop. The overseer rode through the quarters on his horse, and in his hand was a piece of paper. He nailed it to the door of the largest cabin, the one used for gatherings, and rode away without a word. Folks commenced a gathering, silent as ghosts. Most couldn't read, but enough could to spread the word. Dinah pushed through the crowd, her heart hammering. There, on that paper in black ink that looked like dried blood, was a list of names. To be sold at auction in New Orleans. She scanned the list, her eyes blurring with tears, and there it was. Dinah, female, age 28, Jem, male child, age 7, Lila, female child, age 5. The world tilted. Someone caught her as her knees gave out. All around her, wailing rose up. Other families seeing their names, realizing their worst nightmare was coming true. But through the grief and terror, Dinah felt something else rising in her chest. Something hot and fierce and unbreakable. Rage. She pushed herself up, stared at that list with eyes that burned like fire. In her mind, she heard her mama's voice from years ago, the last words before they dragged her to the auction block. "Don't you ever let 'em break you, baby girl, you hear me? Don't you ever." That night, after the overseer's rounds, Dinah held her children close in the darkness of their cabin. Jem was trying to be brave, but she felt him trembling. Lila cried soft against her chest. "Mama," Jem whispered, "are they really gonna sell us?" Dinah stroked his face, her own tears falling silent. "Listen to me, both of you. I promise you this. I will fight for us. Whatever it takes, I will fight." Outside, the Louisiana night was alive with sounds. Crickets singing, somewhere far off a hound dog howling, and underneath it all the low hum of spirituals being sung in other cabins. Songs of sorrow and hope, resistance and faith. Dinah closed her eyes and sent up a prayer to the ancestors, to the spirits of all who'd suffered before her, to the old gods of Africa that still lived in her blood. "Give me strength. Give me wisdom. Give me fire." And deep in her soul, she swore an oath that would change everything. She would not go quietly. She would not let them take her children without a fight. Even if it cost her everything, she would scream the truth that the white folks wanted to silence. "I am not property. I am human. And I am not for sale." The night pressed down heavy, full of uncertainty and fear. But somewhere in that darkness, a seed of rebellion was taking root. And come morning, the whole world would start to see just how fierce a mother's love could burn. But sleep wouldn't come easy for Dinah that night, no sir. As she lay there in the sufferin' dark, holding her babies close, the memories came rushing back like a flood breaking through a levee. Lord have mercy, some wounds never heal. They just learn to live quiet in your bones till something stirs them up again. She closed her eyes and she was 7 years old again. Back when the quarters seemed bigger and the world seemed smaller. Back when she still had her mama. Her mama's name was Zipporah, a strong woman, powerful strong, with skin like polished mahogany, and hands that could pick cotton faster than any soul on the plantation. Dina remembered how her mama used to sing while she worked, her voice rising up to the heavens like a prayer. She'd sing them old songs in words that wasn't quite English, wasn't quite anything the white folks understood. Words from Africa, from the homeland her own mama had told her about before she died. Little Dinah used to follow behind her mama in the fields, her own small sack dragging in the dirt. "Mama, why we gotta pick this cotton?" she'd asked once, her child's mind not yet understanding the full weight of their bondage. Zipporah had looked down at her daughter with eyes full of love and sorrow mixed together like rain and sunshine. "Baby girl, we pick it 'cause we gotta. But one day..." She'd trailed off, looking toward the horizon where the sun was setting. One day, things gonna be different. But that day never came. Not for Zipporah. Dinah remembered it all too clear. That autumn morning when she was 7, when the buyers came to Hawthorne Plantation. Different buyers back then, but the same cruel purpose. Massa's daddy had been the owner then, just as mean and money-hungry as his son would become. She'd been playing in the dirt outside the cabin, making little dolls out of corn husks like her mama taught her, when she heard the commotion. Voices raised in distress, women wailing, men cursing low under their breath. She dropped her dolls and ran toward the sound, her bare feet kicking up red dust. The quarters was in an uproar. Folks was being rounded up, separated into groups. The overseer, different man back then but just as wicked, was shouting orders, his whip cracking the air like thunder. And there, in the center of it all, stood her mama. Zipporah's hands was chained in front of her. Her head was held high, but tears was streaming down her face. When she saw little Dinah running toward her, she cried out, "No, baby, stay back!" But Dinah didn't listen. She ran straight to her mama, wrapped her small arms around her legs, holding on tight as death itself. "Mama, Mama, what's happening?" "They sellin' me, baby." Zipporah's voice broke on them words. "They sellin' me away." "No," Dinah screamed, her child's voice split in the air. "No, you can't go, Mama, don't go." The overseer strode over, his face twisted with irritation. "Get that pickaninny off her," he barked to one of the drivers. Rough hands grabbed Dinah, tried to pull her away, but she held on with all the strength her little body had. She was screaming, crying, begging, "Please, please, don't take my mama. Please, shut that child up," the overseer roared. What happened next was burned into Dinah's soul like the brand they'd put on her shoulder. One of Massa's men grabbed her, dragging her away from Zipporah. Her mama was wailing, struggling against her chains. "Don't you hurt my baby. Sweet Jesus, don't hurt my child." But they didn't care about no mother's plea. The overseer, fed up with the noise, made a decision that would mark Dinah for life. "Bring the iron," he said, cold as winter. "Maybe a little burn'll teach her to hush." Dinah remembered the terror that seized her heart when she saw them bringing out the branding iron from the fire where it had been heating. It glowed red-orange, the letter H for Hawthorne burnt into the metal. She'd seen it used on grown folks before, seen the way it smoked when it touched skin, heard the screams that followed. "No," her mama screamed, fighting against her chains so hard they cut into her wrists, blood dripping down her arms. "Please, Massa. Please, she just a baby. Take me, whip me, but don't burn my child." But the white man's heart was stone. They held little Dinah down. It took 3 grown men to hold a 7-year-old child, that's how hard she was fighting, and brought that iron close to her left shoulder. She could feel the heat of it before it even touched her skin. Her mama's voice rose up in the most heart-rending scream Dinah ever heard. "Zipporah's baby!" Then the iron pressed against her flesh. Lord of glory, the pain was beyond description. It was like hell itself opened up and swallowed her whole. The smell of her own skin burning, the sizzle of the iron, the way her whole world turned white with agony. She screamed till her voice gave out, screamed till there was nothing left but a raw, animal sound of pure suffering. When they finally pulled the iron away, the damage was done. The H was seared into her shoulder, a mark of ownership that would never fade. She collapsed in the dirt, shaking and sobbing, her small body gone into shock. Through her tears, she saw them dragging her mama away. Zipporah was screaming, begging, praying, "My baby, let me hold my baby one more time. Please, dear God, just one more time." But they didn't stop. They loaded her onto a wagon with a dozen other souls, all of them chained together like animals. Little Dinah tried to run after the wagon, her burned shoulder screaming in protest, but someone, she never knew who, grabbed her and held her back. "Mama!" she wailed, reaching out with both hands. "Mama!" Zipporah's voice carried back across the distance, breaking like glass. "Be strong, baby girl. Don't you ever let him break you. You hear me? Don't you ever." Then the wagon turned the bend and she was gone. Just like that. One minute Dinah had a mama, the next she was an orphan with a burning shoulder and a hole in her heart that would never close. The old woman who took her in, Aunt Ruth, who was younger then but still ancient in wisdom, cleaned and dressed the burn as best she could, but it left a raised, ugly scar, the letter H branded into her flesh like she was cattle. "Don't cry, child," Aunt Ruth had whispered, rocking her through the nights when the pain was worst. "Your mama's love gonna carry you through this, you hear me? She ain't really gone, she lives on in you." But it didn't feel that way to 7-year-old Dinah. It felt like the world had ended. For weeks, she barely spoke. She'd sit outside the cabin at dusk, staring down the road her mama had been taken, waiting for a wagon that would never come back. As the years passed, she learned to live with the loss, but she never forgot. That scar on her shoulder was a constant reminder of her mama's love, of the cruelty of the system that could tear families apart without thought, of the promise she'd made to herself, even as a child. Never again. When I have children, I will fight to the death before I let them take my babies. Now, lying in the dark with Jem and Lila breathing soft beside her, Dinah touched that old scar. It was raised and rough under her fingers, a part of her body that would never forget. The burn had healed, but the wound in her soul stayed raw. "Mama, you still awake?" Jem's voice was small in the darkness. "Yeah, baby boy. Mama's here. I'm scared." She pulled him closer, pressed her lips to his forehead. "I know, child. I know you scared, but listen here." Her voice grew stronger, filled with the same fierce love that had made Zipporah fight against her chains all them years ago. "I made a promise to myself a long time back. When my mama was took from me, I swore I'd never let that happen to my own children. Never. But how can you stop 'em, Mama?" Lila whispered, her voice thick with tears. "They so big and strong and we just slaves," Dinah finished for her. "That's what they want us to think, baby girl. That's the lie they tell to keep us down. But you know what? My mama taught me something before they took her. She taught me that no matter what chains they put on our bodies, our souls belong to us. Our spirits can't be sold." She sat up, her voice taking on the rhythm of testimony, of truth spoken in the dark. "Tomorrow, when that sun rises, we gonna go about our work. We gonna keep our heads down and our eyes sharp. But inside, in here," she pressed her hand to her chest, "we gonna be building up strength. We gonna be remembering who we are. We ain't just the names they call us. We the descendants of African kings and queens, of warriors and healers. We got power they don't even understand." "What kind of power?" Jem asked, his eyes wide. Dinah thought about Aunt Ruth's words, about the old ways the elders kept alive in whispers and secret ceremonies. "The power of survival, baby. The power of hope. The power to resist even when they think we broken. And most important, the power of love that won't quit, no matter what." She lay back down, gathering both children close. "Now you listen to me good. No matter what happens, no matter where they try to take us, we gonna find each other again. You hear? I will come for you. I will never stop searching. That's a promise I make on my mama's memory, on the ancestors' graves, on everything holy. Outside, the night birds was calling, and somewhere far off, someone was humming a spiritual so quiet it was almost just part of the wind. The quarters settled into restless sleep, every soul carrying the weight of tomorrow's uncertainty. But Dinah didn't sleep. She stayed awake, staring at the cracks in the cabin wall where moonlight slipped through, her mind working like a mill wheel. She was thinking about New Orleans, about the auction block she'd never seen, but heard described in whispers. She was thinking about her mama's last words, "Don't you ever let 'em break you." And she was making plans, dangerous plans, rebellious plans, plans that could get her killed, but might, just might, save her children. As the night deepened toward dawn, Dinah made a vow that would shake the very foundations of Hawthorne Plantation. She would not go quietly to that auction block. When the time came, when they tried to sell her and her babies like livestock, she would do something no slave woman had ever done before in that place. She would say no, not quiet resistance, not subtle rebellion, but a loud, clear, undeniable no that would echo across that auction house and force every white man there to see her humanity, even if it meant her destruction. The brand on her shoulder throbbed like it was fresh again, like her mama's pain and her own was merging across time and space. And in that throbbing, Dinah heard a message clear as church bells. The time for silence is over. The time for shouting is coming. When the rooster finally crowed, Dinah's eyes was already open, burning from the sleepless night. She roused her children gentle-like, dressed them in the dim light, and sent them off to their tasks with kisses and whispered prayers. The day commenced like any other, the bell ringing, the overseer yelling, the endless march to the cotton fields. But Dinah's mind was churning like a storm-tossed sea. She needed knowledge. She needed to understand what was coming, what rights, if any, a slave woman had when facing the auction block. And there was only one soul on the whole plantation who could help her with that: Aunt Ruth, who carried secrets in her ancient bones. That evening, after the work bell released him from the fields, Dinah made her way to Aunt Ruth's cabin on the far edge of the quarters. The old woman lived alone now, her husband and children long sold away, nothing left but her wisdom and her memories. Dinah knocked soft on the doorframe. "Come in, child. Been expecting you." Inside, the cabin smelled of herbs, sage and sweetgrass and other things Dinah couldn't name. Aunt Ruth sat by a small fire, her gnarled hands working a piece of cloth. But it wasn't the herbs that made Dinah's heart quicken. It was what she saw hidden beneath a loose floorboard that Aunt Ruth pulled up. Pages, newspaper pages, carefully folded and preserved like precious treasure. "Sit down, Dinah," the old woman said, her voice low and careful. "Time you learned what the white folks don't want us knowing." "Aunt Ruth, you kept these?" Dinah's voice trembled. Slaves caught with reading material faced the whip, or worse. The laws was clear as daylight. Teaching a slave to read was a crime punishable by law. "Had 'em for years, child. My old massa's son used to throw out his papers and I'd collect 'em from the trash heap. Taught myself to read, word by word, letter by letter. Then I taught others who had the hunger for it." She spread out a yellowed page. "Come close now. Let me show you something." Dinah moved closer, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. The firelight danced across the printed words, and Aunt Ruth's crooked finger traced the lines. "This here's from last year. Listen. Slave auction in New Orleans sees record prices, prime field hands selling for upwards of $1,000. Females of childbearing age commanding premium rates." The old woman's voice was bitter as gall. "You see, Dinah? To them, we ain't people, we currency, we investments." Dina felt sick to her stomach, but she forced herself to focus. Is there any way to stop a sale? Any law that protects families?" Aunt Ruth shook her head slow. "No law gonna help us, child. Law says we property, pure and simple. Says a massa can sell his slaves when and how he pleases. Says families don't matter, babies don't matter, nothing matters but the white man's profit. Then what can I do?" Dinah's voice broke on them words. The old woman pulled out another page, this one more recent. "But listen here, there's whispers of something else. Up north, they got abolitionists. White folks and free colored folk who think slavery's a sin against God. They got this thing called the Underground Railroad, helping freedom seekers escape to Canada and the Free States. Dinah's breath caught. She'd heard rumors, whispers in the dark about souls who disappeared in the night and never been caught. Is it real? Real as the scars on your back, child. Real as that brand on your shoulder. Aunt Ruth leaned in close, her ancient eyes gleaming in the firelight. I've been hearing things. There's stations even down here in Louisiana. Safe houses. Conductors who'll guide runaway souls through the swamps and bayous, past them paddy rollers and their dogs. Hope flared in Dinah's chest like a match struck in darkness. How do I find them? That's the dangerous part. You gotta be smart, child. Careful. The wrong word to the wrong person and you end up at the whipping post or worse. But there's signs if you know how to look. A lantern in a window at midnight. A quilt with certain patterns hung on a line. Songs sung a certain way. Aunt Ruth commenced to teaching her then, right there in the firelit cabin. She showed her the words on them newspaper pages, helping her sound out the letters she didn't know, explaining the meanings of words that opened up whole new worlds. Dinah soaked it up like parched earth drinking rain. This word here, emancipation. You know what that means? Dinah shook her head. Freedom, child. Legal freedom. Some folks up north saying slavery should be abolished altogether, that all of us should be emancipated. It ain't happening tomorrow, but the talk's getting louder. They was so absorbed in the lesson that neither of them heard the footsteps outside. Neither of them saw the shadow pass by the window. It wasn't till they heard the sharp intake of breath that they realized someone was listening. Dinah's head snapped up, her eyes meeting Aunt Ruth's in shared terror. The old woman moved quick for her age, shoving the papers back under the floorboard. But it was too late. They both knew it. Outside, running footsteps faded into the night. Who was that? Dinah whispered, her voice tight with fear. Don't know, child. But whoever it was, they saw enough. Aunt Ruth's face was grave. You best get back to your cabin. Quick now. And Dinah. She grabbed the younger woman's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Remember what I taught you tonight. Remember them words. No matter what comes, knowledge is power they can't whip out of you. Dinah stumbled out into the night, her mind reeling. The quarters was mostly dark, just a few fires still burning low in the cabins. She hurried back to her own place, slipped inside, and found her children already asleep. She lay down beside them, but sleep was impossible. Her thoughts was running wild. Underground railroad, emancipation, freedom. But underneath them hopeful thoughts was a cold dread. Someone had seen. Someone knew they was reading, learning forbidden knowledge. And come morning there would be a reckoning. Outside, the night birds sang their lonesome songs, and somewhere in the distance a hound dog howled. Dinah pulled her children close and prayed to the ancestors, to the old gods of Africa, to any power that might be listening. Protect us, guide us, and if the worst comes, give me the strength to face it with my head held high. The darkness pressed in heavy, full of secrets and danger, and Dinah knew that tomorrow everything might change. The sun wasn't even fully risen when the commotion started. Dinah woke to the sound of horses, many horses, coming up the long drive to the big house. Her stomach dropped like a stone in deep water. Lord have mercy, them buyers was back, and this time they wasn't just looking. This time they was serious about purchasing. She dressed quick, roused Jem and Lila, and stepped outside. All across the quarters, folks was emerging from their cabins with fear written plain on their faces. The air itself felt different, heavy with dread like the stillness before a hurricane. "Mama, what's all that noise?" Lila asked, clinging to her mother's skirt. "Hush now, baby, just go on to Aunt Ruth like I told you." Dinah's voice was steady, but her hands was shaken as she smoothed down her daughter's hair. The overseer's bell rang harsh and loud, calling everyone not to the fields but to the main yard near the big house. That wasn't normal. That wasn't never good. Dinah's heart commenced to beating so hard she thought it might burst right through her chest. They gathered in silence. Men, women, children. all of them knowing something terrible was coming but not knowing exactly what form it would take. Mr. Crouch sat high on his horse, that whip of his coiled and ready. Behind him, 3 carriages was parked in front of the big house. Fine black carriages with brass fittings that gleamed in the morning sun. Then, Massa Hawthorne emerged onto the veranda, and with him came the buyers. Dinah recognized one from before, a thick-set man with mutton chops and cold eyes. The other 2 was new, a tall, thin man who looked like an undertaker, and a younger fellow with spectacles who carried a leather-bound book. "Line up," the overseer barked. "Men on the left, women and children on the right." They scrambled to obey, fear making them clumsy. Dinah found herself standing in the women's line, her eyes searching for Jem and Lila. She spotted them further down, Aunt Ruth's gnarled hand resting protective-like on Jem's shoulder. The buyers descended from the veranda like vultures circling carrion. They moved through the line slow, examining folks the way you'd examine livestock at a county fair. Dinah watched them open people's mouths to check their teeth, feel their muscles, look for scars or signs of weakness. Each examination was a humiliation, a reminder that in the eyes of the law, they wasn't human beings but property to be appraised and sold. When they got to old Silas, the thin man wrinkled his nose. Too old, worn out, not worth the trouble of feeding. Silas's shoulders slumped, relief and shame mixing on his weathered face. He'd been spared, but at the cost of being deemed worthless. They moved on down the line. The man with the ledger was writing notes, his pen scratching across the paper with each person they examined. This one, good teeth, strong back. Mark her down at $800. This boy, young, trainable, $600. Human lives reduced to dollar amounts. Dinah felt bile rising in her throat. Then they reached her. The thick-set man stopped, his eyes roving over her from head to toe in a way that made her skin crawl. "Well, now what do we have here? Hawthorne, is this the one you mentioned?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Blackwood. This is Dinah. 28 years old, strong as they come, bore 2 healthy children who are also included in the lot. Lot. Like they was a package deal at the market." Mr. Blackwood stepped closer, so close Dinah could smell the tobacco on his breath and the pomade in his hair. "Open your mouth," he commanded. Dinah's jaw clenched tight. Every fiber of her being wanted to refuse, to spit in his face, to scream. But she thought of Jem and Lila watching, and she forced her mouth open. The man poked at her teeth with his fat fingers, grunting his approval. "Turn around," he ordered next. She turned, her fists clenched so hard her nails drew blood from her palms. She felt his hands on her shoulders touching the brand scar, then moving down to squeeze her arms, testing her muscle. She got good strength, but she's been marked. "That brings the price down some," he said to the man with the ledger. "Put her at $700. The children," he glanced toward where Jem and Lila stood. "$300 each. That's $1,300 total for the family unit." "We don't usually keep family units together, sir," Massa Hawthorne said, and Dinah's blood ran cold. "Sell 'em separate, you get better individual prices." "Mama!" Lila's small voice cried out, and Dinah saw her daughter trying to break free from Aunt Ruth's hold. "No separate sales," Mr. Blackwood said, and for a moment Dinah felt a flicker of hope. "I want the woman for housework. The boy's big enough for light field duties. The girl, well, she'll grow into a worker in a few years. I'll take all 3. The hope died as quick as it came. He was buying them, yes, but not out of kindness, out of calculation, out of profit. "Excellent choice, Mr. Blackwood," Massa Hawthorne said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "I'll have the papers drawn up. You'll take possession day after tomorrow. I'm sending a group down to New Orleans for the big auction next week. These 3 will be presented there, and you can finalize the purchase through the auction house." "Agreed. I like to see my investments appraised publicly. Keeps everything legal and proper." Dinah's world was spinning. New Orleans. The auction block. Just like her mama before her. History repeating itself like a curse passed down through generations. The buyers moved on, selecting others, young Marcus, the driver who'd sold his soul for favors, pretty Sarah with her baby still nursing, strong Thomas who could lift more than 2 men combined. By the time they finished, they'd marked near 20 souls for sale. The sun climbed higher, beaten down merciless, but Dinah barely felt it. She was numb, her mind trying to process what had just happened. She was sold, her babies was sold. In less than 2 weeks, they'd be standing on that auction block, and this time there'd be no going back. The buyers retired to the big house for refreshments, leaving the marked souls standing in the yard like ghosts. Nobody spoke. What was there to say? But then Dinah heard it, a sound that cut through the silence like a knife. Weeping, not loud but deep and soul-broken. It was coming from Sarah, who just realized her baby would be torn from her arms, sold to a different buyer if the price was right. And something in Dinah snapped. She couldn't stand here silent. She couldn't just accept this fate like a dumb animal. The rage that had been building in her chest since she saw that list of names finally found its voice. "No," she whispered. Then louder, "No." Heads turned. The overseer's hand went to his whip. But Dinah didn't care. She'd made her decision. When they took her to New Orleans, when they put her on that block, she wouldn't go quiet. She'd scream her humanity to the heavens, consequences be damned. That evening, when the work bell finally released them from the fields, Dinah walked back to her cabin like a woman in a dream. Her mind was made up, but her heart was heavy as iron chains. She found Jem and Lila waiting for her, their faces drawn with worry beyond their years. "Mama, is it true?" Jem asked, his voice cracking. "Old Silas said we being sold to New Orleans." Dinah knelt down, pulled both her children into her arms, and held them so tight she could feel their hearts beating against her chest. "Listen to me, babies. Listen good. They can sell our bodies, but they can't touch what's inside us. You hear me? Our souls belong to us and the ancestors." "But Mama, I don't want to leave here," Lila sobbed. "I don't want to go on no auction block." "I know, baby girl. I know." Dinah stroked her daughter's cornrowed hair, her own tears finally breaking free. "But we gonna stay together. You, me, and Jem. We gonna hold on to each other no matter what." As darkness fell over the quarters, Dinah made a decision that could cost them everything. She couldn't just wait for the auction. She had to try, had to attempt what Aunt Ruth had whispered about. The Underground Railroad. Freedom. After the children fell into restless sleep, Dinah slipped out of the cabin. The quarters was quiet except for the sound of crickets and distant mournful singing from another cabin. She made her way through the shadows to Aunt Ruth's place, her heart hammering so loud she was sure someone would hear it. The old woman was awake, sitting by her fire like she'd been expecting company. "Come in, child," she whispered, "and close that door tight. Aunt Ruth, I gotta run. Tonight, me and my babies, I can't let them take us to that auction block." The old woman's face was grave in the firelight. "You know what happens if they catch you. You know what the paddy rollers do to runaways." "I know." Dinah's voice was steady despite her fear. "But I also know what happens if I don't try. My mama went to that block silent, accepting. I watched 'em sell her away and I couldn't do nothing 'cause I was just a child. But I ain't a child no more, and I got a choice. Submit or fight." Aunt Ruth studied her for a long moment, then nodded slow. "Your mama would be proud, child, she surely would." She reached under her pallet and pulled out a small cloth bundle. "Take this. It's got some dried meat, a flint for fire, and this." She held up a small piece of paper with markings on it. "It's a map of sorts. Not like the white folks' maps, but our kind. See these symbols? This wavy line is the bayou. This star is the North Star. Follow the drinking gourd in the sky and you head toward the river. There's a place about 10 miles north where the cypress trees grow thick. Look for a cabin with a blue door. That's a station. Knock 3 times, pause, then twice more, that's the signal." Dinah memorized every mark on that paper, then tucked it into her dress. "Thank you, Aunt Ruth, for everything. Go with the ancestors, child. And take this too." The old woman pressed a small cloth bag into her hand. "Gopher dust and angelica root. Protection charm, sprinkle some behind you as you run. It'll confuse them dogs." Dinah hurried back to her cabin, her mind racing with plans. She'd wait till the midnight patrol passed, then wake the children and slip into the darkness. They'd have maybe 4, 5 hours before the morning bell when their absence would be noticed. Every minute would count. She gathered what little they had, another dress for Lila, a shirt for Jem, the small corn-husk doll she'd made for her daughter. Her hands was shaken as she wrapped everything in a piece of cloth. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change. The hours crawled by like molasses in winter. Dinah lay beside her children, listening to the sounds of the night, waiting for the paddy roller to pass on his midnight rounds. She heard his horse, heard the jingle of his gear, heard him pause outside several cabins before moving on. Silence fell. Dinah waited another 30 minutes, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might wake the children. Then, finally, she shook Jem gently awake. "Mama?" His voice was confused with sleep. "Shh, baby boy, we leavin' right now. Wake your sister, but quiet as a mouse." Understanding dawned in his eyes, fear mixed with excitement. He shook Lila awake, covering her mouth before she could cry out. "We runnin'," Lila whispered, her eyes wide in the darkness. "We seekin' freedom," Dinah corrected. "Now come on, not a sound." They slipped out into the night like shadows. The quarters was dark and still, everyone exhausted from the day's labor. Dinah led her children between the cabins, staying low, moving quick but careful. Every snap of a twig under their feet sounded loud as gunfire to her ears. They was almost to the edge of the quarters, almost to the tree line where the woods began, when it happened. A dog barked. Not just any dog, one of the overseer's hounds trained to catch the scent of runaways. "Run!" Dinah hissed, grabbing both children's hands. They bolted toward the trees, their bare feet flying over the ground. Behind them, more dogs commenced to barking, and she heard voices. Men's voices, loud and alarmed. "Runaways! Slaves on the run!" Lanterns flared to life across the quarters. The night exploded with chaos. Dinah ran harder, dragging her children, the bundle of belongings bouncing against her back. They crashed into the woods, branches scraping their faces, roots threatening to trip them with every step. "Keep running, babies. Don't look back." But the dogs was faster. The paddy rollers was coming, their horses crashing through the underbrush. Dinah could hear 'em getting closer, closer. The baying of the hounds like the howl of hell itself. "There, I see 'em." A gunshot cracked the night. Dinah screamed, shielding her children with her body, but the bullet went wide. They stumbled forward, Lila crying, Jem gasping for breath. Then strong hands grabbed Dinah from behind, yanking her backward. She fought like a wildcat, scratching, biting, kicking. But there was too many of them. They swarmed over her, over Jem, over little Lila, who was screaming for her mama. "Got 'em! Got all 3! The overseer's face loomed over Dinah, twisted with fury. "You stupid woman, you just made everything worse. Everything!" They dragged them back to the quarters, Dinah still fighting every step. The whole plantation was awake now, slaves standing in their doorways, watching in silent horror as the failed runaways was brought back in chains. Real chains this time. Iron shackles clicked around Dinah's wrists and ankles. Around Jem's too, though he was just a boy. Even little Lila got rope binding her hands. They was thrown into the punishment cell, a small dark shed near the big house where disobedient slaves was kept before facing the whip. The door slammed shut, leaving them in blackness. Dinah gathered her sobbing children close, her own tears streaming down her face. They'd failed. They'd been caught. And now the price would be terrible. Morning came cruel and pitiless. The punishment cell door swung open, blinding them with sudden light. Mr. Crouch stood there, his face hard as granite, that whip coiled in his hand like a serpent ready to strike. "Get up," he growled. "Massa wants to see you before you leave." They was dragged before Massa Hawthorne on the big house veranda. The white man looked down at them with cold disgust, sipping his morning coffee like they was nothing more than troublesome livestock. "Dinah," he said, his voice smooth as poison. "You've disappointed me. I treated you fair, gave you work, let you keep your children together, and this is how you repay me? By trying to steal my property, yourself and these pickaninnies?" Dinah kept her head up, her eyes burning with defiance even though her body was aching from the rough treatment. "We ain't property, massa. We human beings." The slap came so fast she didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side, her cheek exploding with pain. Lila screamed, but Jem held his sister back. "You are what I say you are," Hawthorne hissed. "And for your insolence, I'm adding a special instruction to your sale papers. Rebellious. Requires firm hand. That'll bring your price down considerable, Dinah. You just cost yourself value." He turned to the overseer. "Chain her separate from the others, and make sure she understands. One more attempt at escape, and I'll sell her children to the deep south sugar plantations where they work kids to death in 3 years. You hear me, Dinah?" The threat hit harder than any whip could. Sugar plantations was death sentences for children. Dinah's defiance crumbled just enough for Hawthorne to see he'd found her weakness. "Good. Now get him out of my sight. The coffle leaves in an hour." A coffle? Lord have mercy. Dinah had heard of them but never seen one. It was a chain gang of slaves being marched to market, linked together like beads on a necklace of misery. When they brought her and the children to the assembly point, her heart near broke at what she saw. 20 souls stood in a line, connected by a long chain that ran through iron collars locked around each neck. Men, women, even children old enough to walk. At the front was a strong young man named Esau, quiet, powerful, with tribal scars on his cheeks that spoke of African memory. Behind him was old Mammy Jude, a root woman who knew herbs and healing. Then Sarah with her baby somehow still clutched to her chest. And more, each one a story of sorrow. The slave trader who'd bought him, a hard-faced man named Jessup, supervised as they fitted Dinah with her collar. The iron was cold and heavy against her throat, the lock clicking shut with terrible finality. Jem and Lila wasn't collared because of their age, but they was roped to Dinah's waist so they couldn't run. "Move out!" Jessup shouted, cracking his whip over their heads. The coffle began to move, a slow, shuffling march down the plantation road. Each step was agony. The collar chafed, the chains rattled, and the sun beat down merciless on their heads. They walked all day, only stopping when Jessup decided they needed water or rest. Guards rode alongside on horses, rifles ready, eyes watching for any sign of resistance. Dinah found herself walking behind Esau, whose broad back blocked some of the sun. She could see the old whip scars crossing his shoulders, could see the way his hands gripped the chain to keep it from pulling too hard on his neck. "Sister," he said quietly, not turning his head. "You the one tried to run last night?" "Yeah," Dinah whispered back. "Got caught. I respect that. Takes courage to try." His voice was deep, calm. "My name's Esau. I'm from the Ashanti people across the water. My daddy told me stories before he died, stories of warriors and kings. We come from fighters. I'm Dinah. These my children, Jem and Lila." Behind them, Mammy Jude spoke up, her voice crackling with age but strong with wisdom. "Listen here, all y'all. We in this together now. Whatever happens in New Orleans, we look out for each other, you hear? We family now, Coffle family. That's all we got." Others murmured agreement. Sarah started humming a spiritual low and mournful, and others joined in. "Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home." The song gave rhythm to their steps, made the march a little more bearable. Dinah sang too, her voice mingling with the others, and for a moment she felt connected to something bigger than her own suffering, connected to all the souls who'd walked this road before, all the ones who'd sung these same songs while marching toward auction blocks and cotton fields and early graves. They walked for 3 days. 3 days of dust and heat and hunger. 3 days of sleeping in open fields, still chained, while guards watched over them with rifles. 3 days of Lila crying for water, and Jem trying to be strong like a man when he was still just a boy. On the 3rd evening, as the sun was setting blood red over the Mississippi Delta, they saw it in the distance. New Orleans. The city rose up like a fever dream, church steeples reaching toward heaven while below, the streets teemed with sin and commerce. Smoke from steamboats on the river drifted across the sky. The smell of the city hit them before they reached it, a mix of river water, garbage, perfume, and human sweat. There it is, Jessup announced, a satisfied smile on his cruel face. "The Crescent City, best slave market in the South. Y'all gonna make me rich." Dinah stared at the city with dread pooling in her stomach like cold water. Somewhere in there was the auction block. Somewhere in there, her fate would be decided. She looked down at Jem and Lila, saw the fear in their eyes, and made a silent vow. "When I stand on that block when they try to sell me like cattle, I won't be silent. I'll scream the truth so loud even the dead will hear it." The coffle moved forward, chains rattling. Voices humming spirituals marching into the heart of darkness where human flesh was bought and sold like sugar and cotton. They was herded into the slave pen like cattle into a stockyard. The pen was a large brick building near the French Quarter, with barred windows and cells lined up like a prison. The smell hit Dinah first. Unwashed bodies, fierce sweat, sickness, and despair all mixed together in the stifling heat. Jessup unlocked the collars one by one, replacing them with leg irons. "Welcome to your new home till auction day," he announced. "Y'all got 4 days to fatten up and look presentable. The more you're worth, the more I earn, so don't try nothing foolish." They was separated by gender and age. Dinah fought against the guards when they tried to pull Jem away from her. "No, please, he just a boy. Let him stay with me." "Boys over 7 go to the men's cells," the guard said, shoving her back. "Them's the rules." She watched helplessly as they took Jem, his small form disappearing into the darkness of another corridor. At least they let her keep Lila, the child clinging to her mama like a bird of cloth. The women's cell was crowded, maybe 15 souls packed into a space meant for 8. Some was from their coffle like Sarah and Mammy Jude. Others had been there for days already, waiting for auction. They sat on straw pallets, some crying, some just staring at nothing with dead eyes. An older woman with graying hair and tribal markings on her face looked up as Dinah entered. "New arrival," she said to the others. "Make room." They squeezed together, creating a small space for Dinah and Lila. The older woman introduced herself as a beanie. "I been here 2 weeks. They waiting for the big auction. Brings more buyers, higher prices. You'll see things here that'll turn your stomach, sister. Prepare yourself." "What kind of things?" Dinah asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "They gonna clean us up, feed us better food than we used to, make us look healthy and strong. It's all show, fattening the calf before slaughter. They'll examine us, intimate-like, especially the young women. Buyers want to know if we can bear children, if we've been used before." Abeni's voice was bitter. "They'll make us dance, show our teeth, strip naked if the price is high enough." Dinah felt sick. She pulled Lila closer, the child already half asleep despite their surroundings. The next morning it all began. Guards brought in wooden tubs of water, cold but cleaner than anything they'd had in days. "Wash yourselves," they ordered. "Get that road dust off. You gotta look presentable." After washing, they was given new clothes, not fancy, but cleaner than their rags. Simple cotton dresses for the women, clean shirts for the men. Then came the food. Sweet Jesus, the food was better than anything Dinah had eaten in months. Cornbread with real butter, beans cooked with salt pork, even fresh fruit. It should have been a blessing, but Dinah knew the truth. They was being fattened up to increase their sale price. "Eat, child," Mammy Jude encouraged, sitting beside her. "Eat and keep your strength. You gonna need it." On the second day, the examinations began. Dinah watched with growing horror as buyers was allowed into the pen to inspect the merchandise before auction day. White men in fine suits walked through, poking and prodding, asking invasive questions. When they came to Dinah, one man, fat and sweating despite the fan a slave boy waved over him, grabbed her chin and turned her face side to side. "Open your mouth." She did, hating every second of it. He looked at her teeth like she was a horse, grunted his approval, then his hands went to her arms, squeezing her muscles. "Strong. Good for field work or housework? How old?" 28, the guard answered. "Childbearing years." "How many children?" 2. "Both healthy." The man's eyes gleamed with interest. "Where are they?" "Boys in the men's cell, girls here." He pointed to Lila, who shrank back behind Dinah. I'll keep that in mind come auction day. A proven breeder is worth premium price. Dinah wanted to spit in his face, wanted to claw his eyes out, but she held still. One wrong move and they'd separate her from Lila permanently. After the buyers left, Abeni whispered to Dinah, "You got fire in you. I can see it. But you gotta be smart about when you let it show. These white folks, they break spirits for sport." "I can't just submit," Dinah whispered back. "I can't. I ain't saying submit. I'm saying choose your moment. When you on that auction block, when all eyes is on you, that's when you make your stand. If you're gonna make one. But make it count, sister. Make it mean something." That night, Dinah couldn't sleep. She lay on the straw pallet with Lila curled against her, and her mind was racing. Through the barred window, she could see a sliver of night sky. Somewhere up there was the North Star, the drinking gourd, the promise of freedom that seemed further away than ever. She thought about Aunt Ruth's words, about the Underground Railroad, about the abolitionists up north who fought against slavery. She thought about her mama, sold away all them years ago. She thought about Esau's words, "We come from fighters," and she made her decision. When they put her on that auction block, she wouldn't go quiet like her mama had. She wouldn't let them sell her without speaking her truth. Even if it meant punishment, even if it meant death, she would scream to the heavens that she was human, not property. "I am Dinah," she thought fiercely, daughter of Zipporah, granddaughter of warriors, mother of Jem and Lila. I am not for sale. On the fourth day, a guard came to her cell with a message that made her blood run cold. "You, Dinah. Jessup wants to see you in his office, now." The women exchanged worried glances. Private meetings with the slave trader never meant anything good. Dinah kissed Lila's forehead, whispered, "Be brave, baby girl," and followed the guard. Jessup's office was on the second floor of the pen, overlooking the courtyard where the auction would be held. The man sat behind a desk covered in papers, bills of sale, ownership documents, the machinery of human trafficking. "Sit," he commanded. Dinah remained standing, her chin raised. Jessup's eyes narrowed. "I said sit. I'll stand." He rose slowly, walked around the desk until he was inches from her face. "You got a reputation for being difficult. Your former master noted it in the sale papers. Rebellious, literate. Requires firm hand. You know what that does to your value? I don't care about my value. You should, because tomorrow, you're going to be the first one on that block, and I've arranged something special, a lesson for any other slave who thinks about defiance." His smile was cruel. "You're going to learn what happens when property talks back." Dinah's heart was pounding, but she didn't look away. "Do your worst." "Oh, I will. Tomorrow the whole market's going to see what rebellion costs." He dismissed her with a wave and she was taken back to the cell. The women surrounded her immediately, their faces full of questions. But Dinah couldn't speak. Terror and determination was warring inside her chest. Tomorrow was auction day. Tomorrow, everything would change. Dawn broke over New Orleans like a death sentence. Dina woke to the sound of the courtyard gates opening, the rumble of carriages arriving, the voices of white men eager to spend their money on human flesh. Her whole body was trembling, but not from fear, from rage that burned hotter than any branding iron. The guards came early, rousing everyone from sleep. "Up, all of you! Today's the day you find new masters. Look lively now." They was given a final wash, their hair was combed, their clothes straightened. The women who had children was reunited with them briefly. Dinah held Jem and Lila close, breathing in their scent, memorizing the feel of their small bodies against hers. "Mama, I'm scared," Lila whimpered. "I know, baby. But remember what I told you. We got warrior blood in us, kings and queens. Whatever happens today, you hold your head high, you hear?" Jem nodded, tears streaming down his face, but his jaw set firm. "Yes, Mama." Through the barred window, Dinah could see the auction block being prepared. It was a raised wooden platform in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by chairs where the buyers would sit. A podium stood to one side for the auctioneer. Already white men was gathering, Plantation owners in fine suits, slave traders in dusty traveling clothes, speculators with cold eyes calculating profit margins. The air was thick with anticipation, and the smell of cigar smoke mixed with the heavy perfume some of the fancier gentlemen wore. Servants, free people of color, moved through the crowd with trays of drinks. It was like a social event, a party, and the entertainment was human suffering. Jessup appeared dressed in his finest clothes, a ledger under his arm. "Listen up. When I call your name, you come forward. You walk to that block with your head down and your mouth shut. You do exactly what the auctioneer says. Turn around, open your mouth, whatever he commands. Anyone who causes trouble will regret it. Clear?" Murmurs of, "Yes, sir," rippled through the pen. "Good. Now, first lot of the day." His eyes found Dinah, and a cruel smile crossed his face. Dinah and her two whelps come. Dinah's heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. She took Jem and Lila's hands, squeezed them tight, and walked forward. Behind her, she heard Mammy Jude whisper a prayer. "Lord, give her strength." The courtyard was blindingly bright after the dimness of the pen. The sun beat down merciless, and Dinah could feel dozens of eyes on her as she was led to the auction block. The white faces in the crowd blurred together, some curious, some greedy, all of them seeing her as nothing more than merchandise. The auctioneer, a thin man with a voice like a snake, gestured for her to climb the steps. "Come on now, gal. Up you go." Dinah's legs felt like water, but she forced them to move, 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Then she was standing on the platform, exposed to the judgment of men who believed they had the right to own her. Lila and Jem was made to stand at the base of the block where buyers could see them. Dinah's heart was being ripped from her chest, seeing her babies down there, small and vulnerable. "Gentlemen," the auctioneer called out, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "We begin today with a prime specimen, a strong, healthy Negro woman, age 28, experienced in both field and housework. She comes with 2 children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 5, both healthy and trainable." Dinah stood frozen, her fists clenched so tight her nails drew blood from her palms. The auctioneer circled her like a vulture. "Open your mouth, gal. Show these gentlemen your teeth." For a long moment, Dinah didn't move. The rage inside her was building like a storm about to break. The auctioneer's face darkened. "I said open your mouth." She did, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Several buyers shifted uncomfortably. "Turn around. Let them see your build." She turned slowly, feeling their gazes crawling over her like insects. When she faced forward again, she saw Mr. Blackwood in the front row, the man who'd examined her at Hawthorne Plantation. He was leaning forward with interest. "Now then," the auctioneer continued, "I'm told this woman is a proven breeder, bore 2 healthy children and can certainly produce more. Strong back, good for cotton picking or rice cultivation. We'll start the bidding at $600 for the woman alone, or $1,000 for the family unit." "600, someone called out. "650, another voice. "700. The numbers climbed, and with each bid, Dinah felt something inside her breaking. They was bargaining over her like she was a piece of furniture, like her children was accessories to sweeten the deal. She looked down at Jem and Lila, saw the terror in their eyes, and something inside her finally snapped. "800, Blackwood called out. "850. Do I hear 9? "No." Dinah's voice rang out across the courtyard like a thunderclap. The auction stopped. Every head turned. The auctioneer's mouth fell open in shock. "What did you say?" he hissed. Dinah stepped forward to the edge of the platform, her voice rising with all the pain and rage of generations. "I said no. I am not for sale. I am not property. I am a human being made by God, same as you." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some men stood, outraged. Others stared in disbelief. Jessup was pushing through the crowd, his face purple with fury. "I have a name," Dinah screamed, tears streaming down her face but her voice never wavering. "I am Dinah, daughter of Zipporah. I am a mother, a woman, a soul created in God's image. These are my children, mine, not yours to buy, not yours to sell. "Shut her up!" Blackwood shouted. "Shut that woman up now!" Guards rushed toward the platform, but Dinah kept screaming, pouring out all the anguish of her 28 years of bondage. "My mama was sold on a block like this. I was branded like cattle when I was 7 years old. You call this civilization? You call this Christian? This is evil. This is sin against the Lord." Jessup reached the platform, his hand raised to strike her, but Dinah didn't flinch. She stood tall, her voice carrying across the shocked courtyard. "I am not for sale." The slap came hard across her face, spinning her around, but she caught herself and turned back, blood trickling from her split lip. "You can beat me, but you can't silence the truth. Every person here knows it in their heart. What you're doing is wrong." "Get the pitch," Jessup snarled to his men. "Heat it up. This woman needs a lesson she'll never forget." Dinah's blood ran cold, but she didn't back down. She looked out at the crowd, at Jem and Lila crying at the base of the block, at Blackwood's furious face, at all the white men who trafficked in human misery. "Remember this day," she said, her voice breaking but strong. "Remember the day a slave woman told you the truth you don't want to hear, that we are human, and God sees everything." Then they dragged her off the platform, and her screams of defiance turned to screams of terror as she saw what they were preparing. A cauldron of pitch, heating over a fire, the black tar beginning to bubble and smoke. The punishment for rebellion was about to begin. 4 men held Dinah down while the cauldron bubbled and smoked in the center of the courtyard. The crowd of buyers had gone silent, some looking away uncomfortable, others leaning forward with sick curiosity. This wasn't just a sale anymore. It was a public execution of the spirit, a warning to every enslaved soul who dared dream of resistance. "Please," Lila's small voice cut through the tension. "Don't hurt my mama." Jem tried to run to his mother, but a guard grabbed him, held him back. The boy was fighting like a wildcat, tears streaming down his face. "Mama! Mama!" Dinah's heart shattered hearing her children cry out, but she wouldn't take back her words. She wouldn't apologize for speaking truth. Even as terror gripped her chest, she held on to her dignity like a drowning woman holds onto driftwood. Jessup stood over her, his face twisted with rage. "You wanted to be seen as human? You wanted respect? Well, let me show you what happens to property that forgets its place." He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. This is what rebellion looks like, and this is what rebellion costs." The cauldron was lifted by 2 men using thick poles, the black pitch inside it roiling like the mouth of hell. Steam rose from the surface, carrying the acrid smell of tar. Dinah's whole body was shaken now, but not from fear alone, from the absolute injustice of it all. "Any last words before we teach you your place?" Jessup sneered. Dinah looked up at him, blood still trickling from her split lip, and her voice came out strong despite everything. "My place is not beneath you. My place is beside every human being on this earth. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, slavery will end. Your grandchildren will be ashamed of what you did here." "Enough," Jessup roared. "Hold her steady." The men forced her to her knees at the edge of the platform. One grabbed her hair, yanking her head back. Another positioned the cauldron directly in front of her. The heat from it was already scorching her skin, making her eyes water. "We gonna dip her slow," Jessup announced to the crowd. "From the feet up. Let her feel every second of it." But then something happened that nobody expected. From the back of the crowd, a voice called out, a white man's voice, but different from the others. Educated, northern. "Stop this at once!" The crowd parted, and through it came a tall man in a dark suit. Spectacles perched on his nose, his face flushed with outrage. Beside him walked a free woman of color in a fine dress, her head wrapped in a bright tignon. "This is barbaric," the man continued, striding forward. "I am William Bradford, attorney from Boston, and I am here on behalf of the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. What you are doing here violates every principle of human decency." Jessup's face went red. "This is private property, sir. A legal slave auction on Louisiana soil. You got no jurisdiction here. Perhaps not legal jurisdiction, Bradford replied, his voice carrying across the courtyard. But I have moral authority, and I have witnesses. He gestured to several other well-dressed individuals emerging from the crowd, other abolitionists who'd come to document the horrors of the slave trade. We are recording everything that happens here today, every name, every face, every atrocity, and we will publish it in newspapers across the North. Seam buyers started shifting uncomfortably, looking at each other. Having their names associated with torture wouldn't be good for business, even in the South. The woman beside Bradford spoke up, her voice clear and commanding. I am Celeste Toussaint, and I represent the Sisters of the Holy Family. We have funds to purchase this woman and her children if you will cease this cruelty and conduct a proper sale. Jessup looked torn between his rage and his greed. A proper sale meant money. Torture meant satisfaction, but also potential scandal. He looked at Blackwood, who'd been watching the whole thing with narrow eyes. How much? Blackwood asked Celeste directly. $1,500 for all three. It was more than Dinah was worth on the open market, especially marked as rebellious. Jessup knew it. Blackwood knew it. But the slave trader's pride was wounded. She's damaged goods now, he spat. Rebellious, ungrateful. She deserves punishment. Bradford stepped closer to Dinah, his eyes meeting hers with something she'd never seen from a white man before. Respect. Does she? Or does she deserve freedom? Does she deserve to be recognized as a child of God with inherent dignity? The silence that followed was heavy as chains. The crowd was divided, some angry at the northern interference, others clearly uncomfortable with what they'd almost witnessed. Dinah remained on her knees, her children still crying at the base of the platform, the cauldron of pitch still steaming beside her. Finally, Blackwood stood. I'll pay $2,000 for the lot, right now. Cash money, but only if we conduct this proper-like. No more theatrics. Jessup looked like he wanted to argue, but money talked louder than pride. Done. Get her off the platform. The guards released Dinah, and she collapsed forward, gasping. Her whole body was trembling, covered in sweat, but she was alive. She was whole. Bradford helped her to her feet, his touch gentle. You are extraordinarily brave, madam, he whispered. But before Dinah could respond, before she could even process what had happened, Blackwood was there with his contracts. She's mine now. The children, too. Get them cleaned up and ready to travel. We leave for my plantation in 2 hours. Dinah's brief hope crumbled. She'd been saved from the pitch, but she was still being sold, still being separated from any chance of freedom. Bradford looked stricken, but there was nothing more he could do. Louisiana law was clear. As they led her away from the auction block, Dinah caught one last glimpse of Bradford and Celeste. The woman mouthed something. We will find you. It was a promise that seemed impossible to keep. But as Dinah was reunited with her sobbing children, as she held them close while the auction continued around them, she clung to that impossible promise like a lifeline. Her voice had been heard. Her humanity had been witnessed. And somewhere in the North, people were fighting for souls like hers. Maybe, she thought as Blackwood's men led them away in chains, maybe my scream wasn't in vain. But the story don't end clean, children. No, sir. What happened next is the part that haunts the wind still, the part that makes old folks wake up screaming in the night. Because Blackwood, he wasn't no merciful man just 'cause he outbid the torture. He was worse. He was a man who believed in owning souls complete, body and spirit both. After the papers was signed and the money changed hands, Blackwood gathered his new property, Dinah, Jem, Lila, and 3 other souls he'd purchased that day. They was loaded into a wagon, still chained for the journey to his plantation upriver. You cost me extra money today, Blackwood said to Dinah as the wagon rolled through New Orleans streets. That little performance of yours, screaming about humanity and God, it drove up your price, made you notorious, and notorious slaves are expensive slaves. Dinah said nothing, just held her children close. But I'm a fair man, he continued, his voice smooth as oil on water. I'll give you a choice. When we reach my plantation, you can accept your new position with grace and obedience, or you can continue your rebellion. But know this, if you choose rebellion, it won't be you who pays the price. It'll be your children. The threat landed like a physical blow. Dinah's arms tightened around Jem and Lila, her heart hammering with fresh terror. Blackwood had found her weakness and would exploit it without mercy. They traveled for 2 days, stopping only briefly for water and rest. The plantation, when they finally reached it, was vast. Fields of cotton stretching to the horizon. A big house with white columns gleaming in the sun, and slave quarters that looked even more crowded than Hawthorne's had been. Blackwood's overseer, a man named Grimshaw with a face like weathered leather and eyes cold as river stones, took possession of the new slaves. "Get 'em registered, branded if they ain't already, and assigned to work details," Blackwood ordered. "The woman and her girl go to the house, the boy goes to the fields, separate quarters." "No!" Dinah cried out before she could stop herself. "Please, sir, let us stay together." Blackwood turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "See? Already you're bargaining. Already you understand that obedience might earn small mercies. Disobedience earns the opposite." That night, in the house servants' quarters where she was locked with Lila, Dinah learned from the other women what Blackwood's fairness really meant. He was a man who broke spirits methodically, who used psychological torture as effectively as the whip. "He don't beat as much as other masses," an older woman named Ruth whispered. "But he does worse. He separates families, sells children away for the smallest infractions, makes examples that break your heart instead of your back." Dinah's blood ran cold. "What kind of examples?" Ruth's eyes went dark with memory. "Last year, a man tried to run. Blackwood caught him, but instead of whipping the man, he sold the man's wife and baby to a trader heading to the sugar plantations. Made the man watch him get loaded on the boat. The man went mad from grief, just broke completely. That's Blackwood's way." For days, Dinah worked in the big house kitchen, serving meals, cleaning, always under watch. Lila stayed close, her small hands helping with simple tasks. But every evening, when they was locked in their quarters, Dinah would stare out the barred window toward the fields where Jem was working, and her heart would ache with the separation. Then came the night when Grimshaw appeared at the servants' quarters with 2 men carrying a familiar sight. A cauldron, smaller than the one at the auction, but filled with the same black bubbling pitch. "Bring out the woman," Grimshaw ordered. Dinah's stomach dropped. Ruth grabbed her arm, terror in her eyes. "What did you do?" "Nothing, I swear I done nothing." But they dragged her out anyway, out into the yard where the other house servants was being assembled. The cauldron sat in the center, steam rising from its surface, the smell of hot tar thick in the humid night air. Blackwood emerged from the big house, a letter in his hand. "It has come to my attention," he announced, "that certain abolitionist elements in New Orleans have been making inquiries about this woman. Letters have been sent to my address, asking about her welfare, offering money for her purchase and manumission." He held up the letter. Dinah recognized the handwriting. Bradford, the lawyer who'd intervened at the auction. "Such interference in the lawful ownership of property cannot be tolerated," Blackwood continued. "And so, to discourage any further attempts at outside meddling, and to teach this woman the consequences of drawing attention to herself, we will conclude what was interrupted in New Orleans." Horror washed over Dinah like ice water. "No, please. Bring the children," Blackwood ordered. They brought Jem and Lila from their separate quarters, both half asleep and confused. When Lila saw her mama and the steaming cauldron, she started crying. Jem tried to be brave, but his small body was shaken. "Watch closely, children," Blackwood said to them. "Watch what happens when your mother values pride over your safety." 4 men grabbed Dinah. She fought, screamed, begged, but they was too strong. They forced her to her knees at the edge of the cauldron. The heat from it was overwhelming, already blistering the skin on her face. "Please," she sobbed. "I'll do anything. I'll be obedient. Just don't do this in front of my babies." "Too late for bargains," Blackwood said coldly. You made your choice at that auction block. They grabbed her left hand, held it over the cauldron. Dinah could feel the heat intensifying, could see the pitch bubbling below. Her children was screaming. Other slaves was forced to watch in silent horror. "Mama!" Jem's voice broke on the word. Then they plunged her hand into the pitch. The pain was beyond description, beyond screaming, beyond thought. The boiling tar clung to her skin, burning through flesh to bone. Dinah's voice shattered the night. A sound that wasn't human anymore, just pure animal agony. They pulled her hand out after what felt like eternity but was maybe only seconds. The damage was catastrophic. Her left hand from wrist to fingertips was covered in the black, cooling tar. The skin underneath destroyed, already swelling with blisters that would scar forever. Dinah collapsed, still screaming, her body going into shock. The last thing she saw before consciousness fled was her children's faces, twisted with horror and tears, an image that would haunt her forever. She'd paid for her rebellion, paid with her flesh, but the question remained. Had it been worth it? Dinah woke in darkness, her whole body on fire with pain. Her left hand, Lord have mercy, her left hand felt like it was still burning, still being consumed by that hellish tar. She tried to move it and nearly passed out again from the agony. "Easy now, sister, don't move." A woman's voice, soft and careful. "I'm here to help." Dinah's eyes adjusted to the dim light of a single candle. She was in a small room, not the servants' quarters, but somewhere else. The woman bending over her was unfamiliar, middle-aged, with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that held both sorrow and strength. Who are you?" Dinah's voice came out ragged. "My name's Marie. I'm a free woman of color, work as a laundress for Blackwood, but I come and go as I please. Celeste Toussaint sent me." She was carefully unwrapping the crude bandages someone had put on Dinah's ruined hand. "That woman from the auction, she and Mr. Bradford, they ain't given up on you." Fresh tears leaked from Dinah's eyes, mixing with the sweat of fever. Her hand was exposed now, and she forced herself to look at it. The damage was worse than she'd imagined. The skin black and red and weeping, fingers swollen twice their normal size, the tar still stuck in places where it had cooled and hardened. "I got to get this tar off before infection sets in deep," Marie said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's gonna hurt something terrible. You need to bite down on this." She offered Dinah a strip of leather. What followed was a fresh hell. Marie worked with tools and warm oil, carefully peeling away the hardened pitch piece by piece. Each movement sent lightning bolts of pain through Dinah's arm. She bit down on the leather so hard she tasted blood, her screams muffled but still echoing in the small room. "Almost done, sister. Almost done," Marie kept whispering. "You're strong, stronger than they know." Finally, the last piece of tar came free, leaving behind raw, damaged flesh that looked like it had been through fire. Marie applied a salve that smelled of herbs, plantain, comfrey, other things Dinah couldn't name. "This is old knowledge," Marie explained as she worked. "Root medicine from Africa, passed down through my grandmother who was a healer. It won't make your hand like it was, but it'll help it heal better than it would otherwise." As she wrapped the hand in clean bandages, Marie pulled out a small piece of paper from her bodice. "Mr. Bradford wanted you to know. He's working on getting you and your children out. It's complicated, legal tangles with Blackwood's ownership. But there are people up north raising money. The abolitionist societies are making your case known." "But my babies," Dinah whispered through tears. "They made my babies watch. They traumatized my children to punish me." Marie's face hardened. "I know. And that's why we got to get you out. All three of you. But it's gonna take time, and in the meantime, you got to survive. You got to heal and be ready when the moment comes." "How can I be ready?" Dinah gestured with her good hand to her ruined one. "I can barely move. The pain. Pain is temporary. Freedom is forever." Marie leaned in close, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "There's a network, sister. The Underground Railroad reaches even down here, though it's dangerous as hell. When you're strong enough, when the time is right, We'll move you and your babies to a safe house. From there, conductors will take you north, but you got to be patient. You gotta wait for the right moment." She pressed something into Dinah's good hand, a small cloth bag that jingled softly. "Goo for dust and protection herbs. Keep it hidden. When the time comes to run, sprinkle it behind you. It'll confuse the dogs, break your scent trail." Dinah clutched the bag like it was hope made solid. "Why are you doing this? You could be caught, punished." "Because 30 years ago, someone helped me get free," Marie said simply. "I was born a slave in Virginia. A Quaker family bought me and my mama, then manumitted us both. Gave us our freedom legal and proper. I made a vow then. I'd spend my free life helping others get theirs. I work for Blackwood, yes, but I also work against everything he stands for." Over the next week, Marie came every night, changing Dinah's bandages, applying fresh salve, bringing news from the outside world. She told Dinah about the growing abolitionist movement up north, about Harriet Tubman, a woman they called Moses, who'd made multiple trips south to guide slaves to freedom. She told her about Frederick Douglass, an escaped slave who'd become a powerful speaker and writer. "The world is changing, sister," Marie said one night. "Slow, too slow, but it's changing. More and more white folks up north are turning against slavery. They're seeing it for the sin it is." Dinah's hand was healing, not well, but better than it could have. She'd never have full use of it again. The fingers were stiff, the skin scarred and tight. But she could grip things with it, could use it to help with tasks even if it caused pain. During the days, she was forced back to work in the big house kitchen, though Blackwood had at least allowed her children to stay close. Jem worked in the garden outside where she could see him through the window. Lila helped with simple household tasks, always within reach. The other servants whispered about her when Blackwood wasn't around. Some saw her as foolish. Her rebellion had cost her a functioning hand. Others saw her as brave, a woman who'd spoken truth even knowing the price. But Dinah herself didn't know what she was, brave or foolish. Had her scream at the auction block accomplished anything, or had it just brought more suffering? Then 2 weeks after the burning, Marie came with urgent news. Mr. Bradford's made a breakthrough. He found a legal technicality. Hawthorne never properly recorded your sale before selling you to Blackwood. The paperwork's got errors. Bradford thinks he can challenge the ownership in court. Hope flared in Dinah's chest. What does that mean? It means there's a chance, a small chance, that a judge might rule you were illegally sold. That could mean freedom, or at least a new trial to determine your status. Marie's eyes were shining. But it's dangerous. Blackwood's gonna fight it hard, and if Bradford loses, Blackwood might sell you away out of spite, send you somewhere we can't reach you. Dinah looked at her scarred hand, thought about her children sleeping in the next room, thought about her mama sold away all those years ago. Then she thought about her voice ringing out across that auction block. "I am not for sale." "Tell Bradford to file the challenge," she said quietly. "Tell him I'm ready to fight." Marie smiled and pressed something else into her hand, a folded piece of paper. "This is a map. Crude, but it shows safe houses between here and the Mississippi River. If things go wrong, if you need to run before the legal process plays out, you use this, you hear me?" Dinah nodded, tucking the map into her dress. Outside, the first fingers of dawn were touching the sky. Another day of bondage was beginning. But for the first time since the burning, Dinah felt something besides pain. She felt the stirring of hope. 3 months passed like slow torture. Dinah worked in the big house kitchen, her scarred hand aching with every task, while Bradford fought the legal battle up in the courts. Word came through Marie in whispers. The case was progressing, but Blackwood had powerful friends and expensive lawyers. The outcome was uncertain as morning mist. Then came the night when everything changed. It was deep into autumn, the air finally cooling from summer's oppressive heat. Dinah was in the servants' quarters with Lila, both preparing for sleep, when she heard it. 3 soft taps on the window, a pause, then 2 more. The signal. Her heart commenced to racing. She moved to the window, saw Marie's face in the darkness outside, and knew immediately something was wrong. The woman's eyes was wide with urgency. Dinah opened the window, just a crack, What is it? You got to run. Tonight, right now. Marie's voice was barely a whisper but filled with desperate intensity. Blackwood found out about Bradford's legal challenge. He's furious. I overheard him talking with Grimshaw. They planning to sell you and the children tomorrow morning to a trader heading to the deep south sugar fields. Once you cross into Mississippi territory, Bradford's case becomes worthless. The words hit Dinah like a physical blow. Sugar plantations was death sentences, especially for children. Few survived more than a few years in those killing fields. "Where's Jem?" Dinah asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. "Field quarters, but I got someone bringing him. You got maybe an hour before the night patrol makes its rounds. After that, the whole place locks down tight." Marie pressed a bundle through the window. "Food, water flask, the map I gave you. First safe house is 10 miles north near the cypress grove. Look for the cabin with a blue door." "How we supposed to make 10 miles with children in one night? You run like the devil himself is chasing you, because he is." Marie's face was grim. "Listen, sister. There's others going too. Esau from your original coffle, he's here on Blackwood's place now. And Mammy Jude. They both willing to run tonight. Strength in numbers." Within minutes it was happening. A young man Dinah didn't know appeared at the window with Jem, the boy still half asleep and confused. Dinah pulled him through, held him tight for just a moment, then started preparing. She dressed both children in their darkest clothes, tied Lila onto her back with a length of cloth, made Jem promise to stay silent no matter what. They slipped out through the kitchen door that Marie had unlocked from the inside. The quarters was dark and quiet, most folks already deep in exhausted sleep. At the edge of the compound, 3 shadows waited: Esau, Mammy Jude, and a younger woman named Faith, who Dinah had seen working in the fields. "We ready?" Esau's deep voice was calm despite the danger. "As we gonna be," Dinah whispered back. Mammy Jude pulled out a small pouch, sprinkled something on the ground behind them. "Gopher dust mixed with red pepper and sulfur. Confuse them dogs when they come looking." They moved into the darkness beyond the plantation, heading north by the stars. The drinking gourd hung bright in the sky, pointing the way toward freedom. They moved quick but careful, staying off the main roads, cutting through woods and fields. For the first hour it seemed almost too easy. Then they heard it, distant barking. The hounds had been released. "Run!" Esau hissed, and they took off at a full sprint. Dinah's scarred hand throbbed with every jarring step, but she didn't slow down. Lila bounced on her back, whimpering softly but staying quiet like her mama taught her. Jem ran beside her, his young legs pumping hard, his breath coming in gasps. They splashed through a creek, Mammy Jude's idea to break the scent trail, then continued on the other side. Behind them, the barking was getting closer, too close. "Split up," Esau said suddenly. "They can't follow all of us at once. Me and Faith go east, draw some of them away. You 3 go north with Mammy Jude. Meet at the safe house." Before Dinah could argue, he and Faith were gone, crashing through the underbrush in a different direction. Sure enough, some of the barking veered off to follow them, but not all of it. The remaining hounds was still coming for Dinah's group. They ran for what felt like hours, Mammy Jude somehow keeping pace despite her age, muttering prayers under her breath the whole time. The old woman knew these woods, knew where to find game trails and shortcuts. She led them through a section of swamp where the water came up to their knees, where Spanish moss hung down like the fingers of ghosts. "Almost there," she gasped. "Just beyond this bayou there's high ground, the safe house is there." Jem stumbled, nearly went down, but Dinah caught him with her good hand and pulled him upright. "Keep going, baby boy. We almost free." Then the shots rang out. Gunfire close enough that Dinah heard the bullets whistle past. The paddy rollers had caught up on horseback, was firing into the darkness, hoping to hit something. "Down!" Mammy Jude shoved them all into the mud at the edge of the swamp. They lay there, barely breathing, while horses crashed through the woods nearby. Torches flickered between the trees. "I saw something move over there," a voice called out. More gunshots. One hit a tree trunk inches from Dinah's head, sending splinters flying. Lila was crying now, couldn't help it. and Dinah covered the child's mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her own face. They was trapped. The patty rollers was closing in. The dogs was howling and there was nowhere left to run. Then Mammy Jude did something that would save them all. She stood up, stepped out into the open where the torchlight could find her. "Run, children," she said quietly to Dinah. "When they focus on me, you run north and don't look back." "No," Dinah whispered. "We stay together. Ain't no time for argument. I'm old, live my life. You got babies to save." The old woman's eyes was fierce. "Now when I start making noise, you go." Then Mammy Jude stepped further into the light and commenced to shouting, drawing every patty roller's attention toward her position. "Here I am. Come get me, you devils." Gunfire erupted. Dinah grabbed Jem's hand, Lila still on her back, and they ran blindly through the darkness while behind them the chaos continued. The last thing she heard was Mammy Jude's voice, defiant to the end, screaming curses at her pursuers. They ran until their lungs was burning, until they couldn't hear the shots anymore, until they broke through the trees and saw it. A small cabin with a blue door, lamplight glowing in the window. The safe house. They'd made it. But at what cost? Dinah pounded on the blue door with her good hand 3 times, pause, then twice more. The signal Marie had taught her. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened a crack, revealing an elderly white man with kind eyes and a gray beard. "Friends with friends," he said, the coded greeting. "Traveling by starlight," Dinah responded, the counter phrase Marie had given her. The door swung open wide. "Come in quickly, you're bleeding." It was only then that Dinah realized she was injured. Scratches from running through thorns, a gash on her leg from where she'd fallen, and her scarred hand was bleeding where the old wounds had reopened from the hard use. But she was alive. Her children was alive. The man introduced himself as Thomas Garrett, a Quaker from Delaware who maintained this station as part of the Underground Railroad. His wife, Hannah, appeared with blankets and hot soup, wrapping the exhausted children in warmth while Dinah stood shaking in the doorway. "Where are the others?" Thomas asked. "We was told to expect 5 souls." Dinah's voice broke. "Mammy Jude. She sacrificed herself so we could escape. And Esau and Faith, they split off to draw the dogs away. I don't know if they made it." Hannah's face was sad but not surprised. "Many don't make it. The price of freedom is often paid in blood. Come, let me tend to your wounds while my husband prepares the wagon." Over the next hour, Dinah learned the plan. They would hide in a secret compartment built into a wagon carrying cotton bales. Thomas would drive them north through Mississippi, using back roads and avoiding major towns. At each stop, there would be another safe house, another conductor ready to pass them along the chain. "The biggest danger is betrayal," Thomas explained gravely. "There's slave catchers everywhere, and some free-colored folk and even escaped slaves who will turn in runaways for reward money. Trust no one except the people at the safe houses. And if you're caught..." He paused, meeting Dinah's eyes. "Don't mention any of us. The penalty for helping escaped slaves is severe." Just before dawn, as they was preparing to leave, a soft knock came at the door. The same signal. Thomas opened it carefully and Dinah's heart soared. It was Esau, bloody and exhausted, but alive. "Faith?" Dinah asked immediately. Esau's face went dark. "They caught her, shot her trying to cross the river. I heard her screaming." He couldn't finish. Another life paid for their freedom. Dinah felt the weight of it crushing her chest, but there was no time for grief. They had to keep moving. The journey north was a nightmare of close calls and constant fear. They traveled hidden in the wagon during daylight, only emerging at night when Thomas would stop at prearranged locations. At a farmhouse in Mississippi, they narrowly avoided a patrol by hiding in a root cellar, while slave catchers searched the property above them. So close Dinah could hear their boots on the floorboards. At a church in Tennessee, the conductor was a free black preacher named Reverend Morris who spoke in hushed tones about the growing tensions between North and South. "War is coming," he said. "I can feel it in my bones. And when it comes, everything gonna change." They lost precious days when Lila fell sick with fever. A Quaker family in Kentucky nursed her back to health, giving them medicine and warm beds, risking everything to help strangers. Dinah wept with gratitude, unable to comprehend such kindness from white folks when all she'd known was cruelty. But the pursuit never stopped. Blackwood had posted a massive reward, $500 for Dinah's return, a fortune that made every bounty hunter in the South hungry for her capture. Wanted posters with her description was circulating through towns and ports. "You're famous now, sister," one conductor told her grimly. "That scream you made at the auction block, word spread. Some abolitionists up north are calling you a symbol of resistance. But that also makes you a high-value target." They was crossing into Ohio, free soil, finally free soil, when the worst happened. A local farmer who'd been paid to transport them across the river recognized Dinah from the wanted poster. Instead of delivering them to the next safe house, he drove straight to the sheriff's office in a river town. "I got that runaway woman," he shouted. "The one from the New Orleans auction. That's $500. Dinah and Esau was thrown into a jail cell, still chained. The children was taken to a separate room. Through the bars, Dinah could see the sheriff examining the wanted poster, comparing it to her face, especially noting her scarred left hand, the distinctive mark that identified her beyond doubt. "Wire Blackwood immediately," the sheriff told his deputy. "Tell him we got his property and she's secure." That night, in the darkness of the cell, Dinah hit her lowest point. They'd come so far, sacrificed so much. Mammy Jude was dead. Faith was dead. And now, after tasting the possibility of freedom, they was about to be dragged back to the plantation, back to Blackwood's cruelty. But Esau, beaten and bloody, still had fight in him. "Listen," he whispered. "This building is old. The bars on that window, I think they loose. If we can work 'em free, we small enough to squeeze through." They worked through the night, using pieces of loose brick to chip away at the mortar holding the bars. Dinah's scarred hand screamed with pain, but she didn't stop. Just before dawn, one bar came loose, then another. They squeezed through the window, dropped into the alley behind the jail, and ran. The deputy who was supposed to be guarding them was asleep at his desk. They grabbed their children from the unlocked room where they'd been kept and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. But now they was in a free state with no contacts, no safe houses, no idea where to go. And the whole town would be hunting them come sunlight. They hid in an abandoned barn at the edge of town, trying to figure out their next move, when they heard a voice. "Dinah, Dinah, are you in there?" It was Bradford, the abolitionist lawyer from New Orleans. He'd somehow tracked them, following reports of their escape route, and he'd arrived just in time. "Come with me," he urged. "I have friends in Cincinnati, real protection. Legal protection." As they emerged from hiding, Dinah saw what Bradford had brought. Not just hope, but papers, legal documents. "The court ruled in your favor," he said, his face breaking into a smile. "Hawthorne's sale was illegal. Blackwood never had legitimate ownership. You're free, Dinah, legally free." She couldn't believe it. After everything, after all the blood and sacrifice and pain, freedom had come not just through escape, but through the law itself. But even as joy flooded through her, Dinah knew the truth. She'd never be truly safe until slavery ended everywhere. 5 years passed like a dream after a nightmare. 5 years of freedom so strange and precious that Dinah sometimes woke in the night, heart pounding, certain it was all illusion and she'd find herself back in the slave quarters. But it was real. She lived in Philadelphia now, in a small house in a neighborhood of free black folks and Quaker abolitionists. Jem was 12, working as an apprentice to a black carpenter. Lila was 10, attending a school for colored children where she was learning to read and write better than most white folks. And Dinah herself had become something she never imagined, a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Her scarred hand was a badge of honor now, instantly recognizable to freedom seekers who'd heard her story. "You're the woman from the auction block," they'd whisper in awe. "The one who screamed she wasn't for sale." Bradford had written about her case in abolitionist newspapers, and her story had spread across the North like wildfire. She made runs back south 3, 4 times a year, guiding souls to freedom. It was dangerous work. There was still a price on her head in Louisiana, and slave catchers didn't care about court rulings. But Dinah couldn't stop. Every person she brought to freedom was a victory against the system that had tried to break her. Esau had become her partner in the work. The strong, quiet man who'd been in the coffle with her was now a fierce freedom fighter, his tribal scars a symbol of resistance. They worked together, moving through the shadows, speaking in codes, always one step ahead of the catchers. But there was one mission that haunted Dinah above all others. One ghost she couldn't lay to rest, her mama, Zipporah. For 5 years, Dinah had been searching. She'd sent word through the network, asked every conductor, checked every record she could access. Where had her mama been sold? Was she even still alive? The not knowing was a constant ache in her chest. Then, in the winter of 1855, word came through a conductor in Virginia. An elderly woman on a plantation near Richmond, a woman who'd been there for decades, who spoke of a daughter stolen from her when the child was 7, a woman who bore the same tribal marks that Zipporah had carried, marks she'd shown Dinah as a child, saying they was from her own mother who'd survived the Middle Passage. Could be her, the conductor said. Could be 100 other women with similar stories, but the timing's right and the age is right. Dinah made her decision immediately. I'm going to Richmond. That's madness, Bradford protested when she told him. Virginia's got the strictest slave-catching laws in the South. You're one of the most wanted fugitives. If they recognize you, I have to know, Dinah said simply. If there's even a chance it's my mama, I have to try. She went with Esau and 2 other conductors, disguised as a wealthy free black woman's servants traveling with their mistress, a white abolitionist named Sarah Grimke, who'd volunteered for the dangerous mission. They had forged papers, false names, a carefully constructed story. The plantation was a 3-day journey from where they'd entered Virginia. They posed as cotton buyers, Grimke doing the talking while Dinah kept her scarred hand hidden and her head down. The owner, a man named Whitmore, was eager to discuss business. I'd like to see your workers, Grimke said smoothly. Assess the quality of your operation. He led them through the quarters, and Dinah's heart was thundering in her chest. So many faces, so many souls in bondage. Old women working in the cooking area, their backs bent from years of labor. Then she saw her. Time stopped. The woman was ancient now, her hair completely white, her face deeply lined. But those eyes, Dinah would have known those eyes anywhere. And the way she moved her hands while stirring a pot, the exact same gesture Dinah remembered from childhood. Mama, she whispered, so quiet only Esau heard. He squeezed her arm in warning. Not yet, not here. They completed the tour, Grimke making polite conversation while Dinah's mind raced with plans. That night she would come back. That night she would speak to her mama for the first time in over 30 years. As midnight approached, Dinah slipped away from their lodgings in town and made her way back to the plantation. Esau was with her, standing watch while she approached the quarters where the old woman slept. She knocked softly on the cabin door. Silence, then shuffling footsteps. The door opened a crack and those eyes, Zipporah's eyes, peered out. Who there? Mama, Dinah whispered, stepping into the light. Mama, it's me. It's your daughter. The old woman stared, not comprehending at first. Then recognition dawned slowly, impossibly. Her hand came up to touch Dinah's face, trembling. Baby girl. Her voice cracked. My baby girl. No, can't be. Can't be. She was just a child and you... It's me, Mama. I'm grown now. I'm free. Dinah was crying, holding her mama's wrinkled hand to her cheek. I came back for you. Zipporah collapsed against her, sobbing like her heart was breaking and healing at the same time. I thought I'd never see you again. All these years I prayed so hard. I'm taking you out of here, Dinah said fiercely. Tonight, we got people waiting, a route north. You're gonna be free, Mama. But Zipporah pulled back, her face conflicted. Child, I'm old. 70 years if I'm a day. I can't run like you can. I can't make that journey. Then we'll carry you. We'll do whatever it takes." The old woman smiled through her tears. "You always was stubborn, even when you was little." She touched the scar on Dinah's shoulder, the brand from when she was 7. "They marked you that day, the day they took me. I heard you screaming all the way down the road." "I know, Mama, but that's over now. We're gonna walk out of here together." It took 3 more days to arrange everything. They had to wait for the right moment, create a distraction. When it finally came, a barn fire on the far side of the plantation that Esau set as a diversion. Dinah snuck her mama out through the chaos. The journey north was slow with an elderly woman, but they made it. Step by painful step, safe house by safe house, they made it to Philadelphia. And on the day Dinah stood on her porch, watching her mama meet her grandchildren for the first time, watching Jem and Lila embrace the grandmother they'd never known, she finally understood. Every sacrifice had been worth it. Every scar, every moment of terror, every drop of blood spilled on the road to freedom. It had all led to this moment. Her family was whole again. The year was 1861 and the nation was tearing itself apart. War had finally come. The war Reverend Morris had predicted all them years ago. The South had seceded, fired on Fort Sumter, and now the Union and Confederate armies was marching toward each other like 2 hurricanes about to collide. Dinah stood on the porch of her Philadelphia home, watching freed slaves arrive in the city by the hundreds, escaping the chaos of the South. Some came through the Underground Railroad. Others just fled during the confusion of war. Each one represented a crack in the foundation of slavery, and Dinah's heart swelled with hope, even as it broke for their suffering. Inside, her mama sat by the fire, teaching Lila how to weave baskets in the old African way. Jem had enlisted in a colored regiment being formed to fight for the Union, against Dinah's wishes, but she understood his need to fight for something bigger than himself. Esau had done the same, joining up with the fierce determination of a warrior finally given permission to strike back at his oppressors. Bradford visited that evening, bringing news and newspapers. "President Lincoln is considering an emancipation proclamation," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "It might actually happen, Dinah. Legal freedom for all enslaved people in the rebel states. About damn time," Zipporah muttered from her chair, and everyone laughed despite the gravity of it all. But Bradford's face grew serious as he pulled out another document. "There's something else. I've been contacted by several abolitionist societies. They want you to speak, Dinah. Tell your story publicly, help rally support for the Union cause and for complete abolition." Dinah felt fear grip her chest. "Speak? In front of crowds?" "You already spoke in front of a crowd once," Bradford reminded her gently. "At that auction block in New Orleans. Your voice rang out so clear that people still talk about it 6 years later. Now we need that voice again, but this time for a different purpose. To inspire, to educate, to show the North what slavery really means." Over the next months, Dinah found herself doing something she'd never imagined. Traveling to churches, meeting halls, and abolitionist gatherings, standing before audiences of white and black folks alike, telling her story. She spoke about the auction block, about the pitch burning her hand, about the separation from her mama and the long journey to freedom. At first her voice shook, but then she remembered Mammy Jude's sacrifice, Faith's death, all the souls who'd paid the ultimate price for freedom. She remembered her own scream, "I am not for sale," and her voice grew strong. "Look at this hand," she'd say, holding up her scarred left hand for audiences to see. "This is what slavery does. It burns, it destroys, it leaves permanent marks. But you know what? It couldn't destroy my spirit. It couldn't make me less than human. And that's what you need to understand about every enslaved soul still in bondage. They are human, complete and whole, deserving of freedom." Young freedom seekers began arriving at her door, sent by conductors who knew her reputation. One cold November night, she opened the door to find 2 teenagers, a brother and sister who'd escaped from a plantation in Georgia. They was scared, exhausted, hungry. As Dinah fed them and prepared hiding spaces, the girl looked at her scarred hand and whispered, Are you really her? The woman from the stories? What stories, child? The ones they tell in the quarters. About the woman who screamed she wasn't for sale, even though she knew they'd punish her. The conductors say your story gives people courage to run. Dinah felt tears prick in her eyes. Her suffering, her scream, her resistance. It had meant something after all. It had become a story passed from mouth to mouth, quarter to quarter, giving hope to souls who needed it most. That night, after the teenagers was hidden safe, Dinah gathered her family around the fire. Her mama, now 75 and still sharp as a tack. Lila, who'd become a teacher at the colored school. Even Jem, home on leave from his regiment, wearing his Union blue with pride. "Tell us again, Mama," Lila said softly. "Tell us about that day at the auction." So Dinah told it, as she'd told it dozens of times now, but this time for her own family. She told them about standing on that block, about feeling the weight of generations of suffering, about making the choice to speak truth even knowing the cost. "Why'd you do it?" Jem asked. "You knew they'd hurt you." Dinah looked at her scarred hand, then at her son. "Because silence is complicity, baby boy. Because every time we stay quiet in the face of injustice, we let evil win a little more. I couldn't save myself by screaming, but maybe I could save my soul. Maybe I could plant a seed that would grow into something bigger." Zipporah reached over and took her daughter's scarred hand in both of her weathered ones. "Your scream echoed back to me, child. Even though I was far away, even though years had passed, it echoed. And now it's echoing through the whole nation." Outside, the winter wind blew cold, but inside they was warm. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Somewhere in the south, armies was preparing for battles that would determine the fate of millions. Somewhere in the quarters, people was whispering stories of resistance and hope. And Dinah understood finally that her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to all the souls who'd suffered, all the ones who'd fought, all the ones who'd died believing in a freedom they'd never see. She looked at her family, 3 generations sitting together in freedom, and thought about all the families still torn apart by slavery. There was still so much work to do, so many souls to free, so many stories to tell. But tonight, in this moment, she allowed herself to feel something she'd never quite felt before. Peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of knowing that her suffering had meaning, that her scream had been heard, that her resistance had mattered. "Mama," Lila said softly, "when the war's over and all the slaves are free, what will you do?" Dinah smiled, her scarred hand resting in her lap like a badge of honor. "I'll keep telling the story, baby girl. I'll make sure nobody forgets. Because the ones who suffered deserve to be remembered. The ones who resisted left us a legacy. And that legacy lives on in every voice that refuses to be silenced." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Philadelphia night. Somewhere out there, freedom was spreading like dawn across the land. Slow, painful, bought with blood, but coming nonetheless. "Who suffered, suffered," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of testimony. "Who resisted, left memory. And memory we keep alive here in the echoes from the quarters. We keep it burning like a torch in the darkness, so the next generation knows the price of freedom and never, ever takes it for granted. This is our sacred duty, to remember, to testify, to echo the voices of those who came before. And as long as one soul still speaks these truths, the quarters will never be silent." The fire crackled, the wind blew, and the story lived on.